Congressman, it's so good to have you here with us today and in your office on this Black History Month. It's such a special occasion for us and for the nation to acknowledge all of your leadership during Black History Month. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here and thank you for allowing us to be here. I'd like to ask you a couple questions about your 2010. Share with us your views since 2010 when we were at the Congressional Black Caucus and we awarded STEM Ambassador, Champions of Change. What has your greatest moments been in terms of progress around STEM and Black and Brown America? And tell us some of your most dire concerns at this point.
Well, since we've been more challenged negatively, legislatively, since 2010, however, the importance of STEM education continues to grow on a daily basis, and the population that we need to reach more prominently is still the population that we dream about getting and that we are attempting in all ways that we can to attract. We know that by 2050, the majority of the people in this country will be minority and women, and we have fewer minorities and fewer women in the STEM careers than any other part of the population. Now, it's not because it just make it look good. It would look wonderful. It would look like America to have more minorities and more women. But the important thing is we need the brain power. And we've got to use the available brain power out of our population that we have in order to be competitive worldwide. Because we're not talking about state to state, we're talking about a global economy that we're dealing with. And we must have talent and skills that can compete globally in order to be competitive on a global level. We've got to reach the population we have, and we know we must reach minorities and women. And those are the two populations that have not traditionally been a part of the STEM courses, the STEM careers. But that's where the talent is needed. And that's the reason why it's so important that we try to get the word out everywhere we can.
Have you seen particular opportunities in specific legislation or agencies that you interface with that you know could produce that kind of solution?
Well, we have really good support from the corporate structure. What we need from this institution is a good infrastructure, a good legislation like America Competes that we passed for the first time in 2007. We need to reauthorize it so that we can continue to focus on the education opportunities. It's not only for the students, but it also is education for the teachers. You know, all over the country, there's a grave and continual need for very skilled teachers. My K through 12 education. We still have a majority of our minority students graduating from high school that are not college ready. Not every STEM course needs college, but you need something beyond high school. And so community colleges play a great part in that. There's even been some discussion as to whether or not we could see if we could get some type of free education, maybe the first 2 years at historically black colleges, because that is their greatest challenge, is trying to see how they can educate minority students at historically black colleges or whoever goes there. Because the majority of students that go to historically black colleges are in need of funds. And when they make the loans and don't pay them back, it jeopardizes the schools. And so we're looking, yet we still graduate more African Americans, especially from historically black colleges, than other schools. So for that reason, it's a two-edged interest.
Where do you find that there's a need for spending more time legislatively? Is it in the federal agencies for appropriation and that fight? Is it in the communities with the school systems? Is it HUD with housing and the family structure that needs to best prepare these communities for the 21st century that you speak about?
Well, it's all of it, in a sense, because if you noticing the migration in our urban areas, middle-class people with school-age children are leaving the public schools in the urban areas. And they're moving to the suburbs, or they're moving to private schools and charter schools. Well, we need good education no matter where it is, but we all know that our poorest students still are in public schools. So we must have strengthened public schools. If the public schools are not strengthened well enough to get master teachers, then our students still suffer. And so that is a problem that is very present in every urban community in this country.
It's oftentimes with this kind of discussion, even as we celebrate Black History Month and all the accomplishments, we face these almost daunting challenges. But you have been such a stalwart. You're on the Office of Science and Technology Policy Committee. You meet at the White House, you meet with Mr. Holdren, and you know about the COSTEM, and you work with NASA. Where do you see the greatest hope, irrespective of all these challenges? Where do you see it?
Well, let me say that the White House and the National Science Foundation and NASA are all on the right road, and they're headed in the right direction. They are not the problem. The problem is here in the Congress. It's whether or not we can continue to preserve the right structure of the legislation that would interest the populations that we need to seek and to offer the greatest opportunities for that population. That's where we're having a problem. There's either a lack of understanding or a lack of interest in many of the newer members of the new majority that we have in this Congress. That is our urgent problem right now. We've had we're just coming out of a real recession where a number of the parents lost jobs, and parents are taking care of their parents and their children being in college at the same time. We understand the sociology of that. But it still impacts the current situation. I'm not sure I have the answer to it, to tell you the truth. I'd love to have an answer. I would like to go to the president, and I could do that and say, we're talking about free community college education. Why can't we give a free college education to historically black colleges to offer to the students at least their first 2 years? Now, before I get too far out on that, we haven't funded the community college idea yet.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm not sure that this is going to happen in this Congress. I hope it does. I think it's worth that investment. But what I think is worth the investment here for the future of our nation does not seem to get the ear of the majority here. So it is still an uphill climb.
I think in good measure, it's confidence to say that your leadership of the past and your present perseverance of being able to navigate through this environment can bring a collaboration of talent on both sides of the aisle together to look at the needs of this nation, being educated and being globally competitive in a way that we may be able to get past because we've gone down so far. We've seen, if you lack of a better term, rock bottom. And it's not a good feeling. It's a demand that puts entitlement back into the equation. So I feel a sense that with your energy and your leadership, stay encouraged that you continue to assemble people around these good ideas.
Well, I certainly, it's too important to give up on. It's too important not to try to find ways and strategies to be successful. I hope we can be. It is very, very difficult in this environment, but the more our young people realize the importance of voting and getting the right people in office, that leads us into a direction of solving many of these problems. You know, I represent the United States in the world science community, and I talk about it all over the world. We all know the challenges that we're facing, and this is the first time in my life as an American that I've been able to feel like an underdog in a sense, with all of these emerging nations passing us by as we sit here and plead with each other on whether or not we want to be on a competitive stage for the future. Mm-hmm. Because it's these areas that will determine whether we are. Right now in this country, the majority of our greatest researchers are not American born. Mm-hmm. We need to encourage many of our American born young people to become researchers. They might not make the money a hip hopper would make, but their achievements and the longevity and the contributions to the nation is unsurpassed. And so that's one of the lessons that we can carry, that too many of our young people get excited by sports and hip hop. And there's nothing wrong with that, except the longevity of it is not a staying power. In order to really focus on you can be as a matter of fact, we have an astronaut who was a professional football player.
That's right.
And so it doesn't prohibit you from going on, but it should not be a terminal career to be a professional athlete. It should not be a terminal career even to be a professional entertainer. If you think that you're going to make, unless you're a great manager and hit it right and make a lot of money and invest it well, then you might need to fall back on some other talent that you might have. But it is not incongruent to have a professional entertainer or a professional sports person that would also focus on the sciences and math and engineering and research to continue to give to our society. But we've got to convince our young people about the importance of these core areas of interest, because it is the future of our nation. Just think about things that have been discovered. And African Americans, not on the short list of discovery, of many of those discoveries, but it was done by human beings. It wasn't done by a piece of technology. Right. We had to make the technology to produce it. Mm-hmm. And so we can do it. We can do it, and that's what we need to convince our young people of, is that yes, it's achievable. It takes focus on something that's very meaningful, not only for the personal satisfaction, but for our nation. There are young people, very young people, who develop apps and other parts of the technology and sold it to the larger companies and do very well. We've got the talent. We've just got to keep it focused and directed. And it takes all of us to keep that interest. The adults, most especially young adults, because you know when you get my age, young people don't listen to you as well. But trying to convince young people to be so focused on how much satisfaction can come. You know, the satisfaction from being a physician or being a dentist or being a technologist in the laboratory or in industry. It gives a great deal more than money. And we've had a society that is focused on money for a long time, and money is important. But there's great satisfaction in being in some of the other parts of the STEM career areas.
Congresswoman, I'm just going to close by saying that you, in the last 3.5 minutes, have just described the problem statement and you have provided the solution. And I can see an assembly of a conference that says this is a conference of excellence in the 21st century. People like yourself can bring leaders, industry, academic, and government together, convening, and to not leave the room until those solutions are had and the young people become front and center. They become the audience. They become the beta test as to where we start with this conversation, how we track them, how we stay with them, and how we're committed to them. And it doesn't have to happen all here in Congress. It needs to happen by all of us through a collaboration.
Well, that's true. As a matter of fact, I work with a lot of volunteer organizations who actually are volunteering and helping young people to become focused in areas in the sciences, technology, math, engineering, through practical experiences, showing examples, role modeling,
Mentorship.
and mentorship. Very,
right.
and we really have, very honestly, a very cooperative corporate community.
Yes.
Because it's an investment in their future
That's
too.
right. That's exactly
They need the
right.
talent,
That's
and they
exactly
need the
right.
talent to remain competitive. So we've had some companies that have been very generous in their support in cultivating the interest of young people.
Well, Congresswoman, I want to say in 2012, you were a champion of change. You continue to be a champion because you are changing the game. And then so in 2015, we honor you as our Black History legend, living legend. And we frankly at OGTV call you the queen of STEM diversity in this nation. Thank you so much for your commitment.
Well, thank
you inspire me every time we get together. And so we'll continue to get together, and I want to be part of the commitment that we assemble those solutions. And I could say next year this time we'll be able to say that we've made those kinds of progresses that you speak about. Thank you so much for
Well, thank
this
you.
and this.